guys. You are now watching Talk with Shauna, your one-stop shop for everything music, right here on the Fired Up Network Female Empowerment Movement. Talk with Shauna and the Fired Up Network both stand with the Ukraine in support for the Ukrainian people's right to live free and in peace in their own land. If you haven't already discovered, Pink Floyd have reunited to record their first new material in 28 years, a protest song against the Ukraine war. The song Hey Hey, Rise Up features David Gilmour and Nick Mason alongside longtime Floyd bassist Guy Pratty and Nateen Sani on keyboards. But the song is built around a spine-tingling refrain from Ukrainian singer Andriy Klivniuk of the band Boombox. Now that last name is definitely not an easy one. Let's just put it that way. Gilmour says the song is a show of anger at a superpower invading a peaceful nation. So for this episode of Talk with Shauna, we will be discussing NFTs and how they affect the music industry and copyrights. So for starters, for those of you who don't know what an NFT is, also pronounced nifty, then you're going to want to listen up. To simplify it, an NFT is a non-fungible token, which is represented by a one-of-a-kind, unique digital piece of artwork, whether it be a simple painting, picture, or an actual audio or video file. NFTs are highly celebrity-driven and are the main source of artists reclaiming ownership of their intellectual properties. For example, we have deadmau5 and Steve Aoki, two of the biggest DJs in the world. And they both have unique NFT collections that have generated millions of dollars. But I think the biggest example would be that of artists like Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Illmind, Timbaland, and the list goes on. As a matter of fact, Snoop just dropped the very first music video in the metaverse. A while back, he purchased land in the sandbox and started building a virtual brand for himself that he owns outright, 100%. So what does that mean exactly? Basically, when Snoop signed his record deal in the early 90s, the metaverse and NFTs weren't even a thought, let alone something the labels had the foresight to put in his contract. So now he has basically circumvented his lifetime of giving the label 97% of his sales to starting fresh and keeping 100% of what's his. There is zero need for distribution deals, as OpenSea.io, you can see here, and multiple lands in the metaverse are accessible with the click of a button.
NFT, never forget to pass.
We have the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is a collection of 10,000 different digital cartoon apes. And if you're not hip, get familiar, because it's one of the most successful NFT collections in the world. Definitely the most notable and recognizable. The most notable and recognizable, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, is very exclusive, and you better have about 500K if you want to join. At the beginning of the year, Eminem purchased a Bored Ape for 465K and is currently using the image as his avatar across all social media. So, fun fact. While I was researching Eminem and Associates, I came across something very interesting. Okay, so you know we are all about representing Canada here on Talk with Shauna and the Fired Up Network. So I am proud to say that a Canadian rapper named Entheos was actually in line to work with Eminem and Skylar Grey. He was in a competition hosted by Gig.com that awarded the winner the opportunity to have studio time with Eminem's protege, Skylar Grey. Unfortunately, even though he did make Canada very proud, he lost in the final round to my special guest on the show today, Billy ShayXpeer. He is the mind behind most of Eminem's work for almost a decade. He is Skylar Grey's signed songwriter and ex-boyfriend. He is the winner of the Gig.com Final Warning competition and a Grammy Grant recipient, the self-proclaimed true vanilla gorilla, Billy ShayXpeer.
McConnell's, Obama's, the Romneys, a comma, the list goes
Let me delay no longer. Skylar, who's our winner?
The winner is Billy ShayXpeer.
Congratulations. How'd you pick this guy? What'd you like?
He shows a lot of depth. There's something about him that I think is really special, and I saw it the first time I watched his video.
It's gonna end with me basically living out my dream to the fullest and taking care of my kids, buying a house. It's a humble house, and nobody can ever take from me.
It ain't about your color, it's about the little man.
So hi, Billy. Welcome to the show.
How are you?
I'm good. It's great to have you on the show. I just, first off, tell me, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Not too bad. Can't complain. So I'd like to know, actually, first off, where are you from and where are you living currently?
Was born in Atlanta, Georgia for like first decade of my life, but pretty much Indianapolis raised, but I'm back and forth from California to Indianapolis, and I spend most of my time living in Indianapolis. So
Well, I want to know, how did you get into rapping and writing verses? I mean, has it always been a passion of yours?
yeah, I mean, since I was kid, I remember like on my 8th birthday, like I was living in Riverdale, Georgia, and I remember distinctly I got a cassette tape of Beastie Boys, is the one with the airplane on it. I think it's Ill Communication. And also this is for my birthday. I got 2 cassettes. One was the Beastie Boys Ill Communication, and one was Fat Boys Crushing. So my parents were like, how older people are with new music, so they weren't too keen on it. But I mean, I guess that was my first exposure to it, and I really took to the Beastie Boys, Fat Boys. I mean, there's some great lyrics in that cassette. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just evolved. It evolved. I guess I went through I don't know. I went through an eclectic phase of learning about all different kinds of music at an early age, because my parents were heavily involved with like classic rock, like Doors and Pink Floyd, and just all the hits and stuff. Half my family is Italians from New York, so I grew up on the Frank Sinatra stuff a lot of the time too, and it just kind of coalesced into being a teenager. Got into the Wu-Tang Clan, and I realized like there were really no boundaries as far as lyricism and how you could stretch a word at that point. And I mean, Wu-Tang, Nas, Pharoah Monch, like they just were real heavy influences for me as far as just true witticism. Tribe Called Quest, they had more of a party vibe. But they were lyrical. But that's basically essentially that. And I developed my own style. Like growing up, I always hung out with the kids who wrote graffiti, and it just I don't know.
Very cool, very cool. I love the Beastie Boys personally. I think they're awesome. I
Yeah.
grew up on them too, and Wu-Tang. I mean, come on.
You know what I mean? Like
that, right?
RZA is one of like my favorite people ever in music. He's a genius. So
Now, mind you, I haven't seen them live, so that's something. A friend
I
of mine
saw
went.
him
I was
live
so
in
mad.
1997 and at Deer Creek in Noblesville, Indiana. And I remember Method Man came out. He said, "Why are you all standing way the hell back then?" Whatever, And everybody just rushed the stage. People got trampled, and it was insane. And they played with Rage Against the Machine, so it was like Wu-Tang and Rage Against the Machine, dude. Like it was like one of the most epic shows I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, dude, it's yeah.
I would have loved to seen Rage too, like that. That's pretty cool. So I guess my next question is this: how did your involvement with Eminem and Skylar Grey come about? Like that's epic.
Man, it's crazy. Essentially, I did a bunch of time in prison. I was being stupid. I was sitting in prison one day, and I saw they were performing "I Need a Doctor" on the Grammy. I said, "I'm gonna be there." And I told my buddy Johnny Madison. Johnny Madison, he works in Hollywood. We just happened to be in prison together in Indiana for years together. But we both got out, obviously. but he went back into Hollywood. He's actually worked on the Black Panther movies. He's really great at what he does as far as, you know, film and lighting and whatnot. But, you know, he's also a lyricist and a musician. So, you know, I got with him when we got out of prison, and he introduced me to some people he knew around my way. And he's from Gary, Indiana. But he introduced me to some people he knew around my way with a studio. They were working with Brian McKnight. And essentially, you know, I started just kind of recording stuff. And then I went out to LA to this songwriting convention. But before I went, I had been laying carpet. And like the dude I was laying carpet with, Ryan, like we had been working together for like 6 months, like just me and him, like we laid all the carpet in the Marriott hotels in Long Island, New York. We did some big, huge stuff, and he never knew I rap. You know, and one day we were hanging out drinking some beers, and I started rapping. Come to find out, his best friend growing up from Indianapolis, Woozy Collins, he was doing an internship for Interscope for Esther Dean at the time, and so I had gone out to LA to this songwriting thing, whatever. That's where I met my manager. He's actually the one that notified me about this competition that I won. I met her. She's like, "You're unique. You're a beast. Let me manage you." Or blah blah blah. I'm like, "Sure, why not?" Ultimately, she called me like 2 in the morning and said, "Hey, there's this competition you need to get into." It was hosted by Skylar Gray and Gig.com. I had never heard of him. I guess this was like the premier debut contest that Scott Warner. He's awesome dude. He's Mormon from Salt Lake City, Utah. He's an amazing guy. He hosted. He built this website. He met Skylar Gray on a plane. He said, "Hey, why don't you be the first one?" She had to come call me. Says you got to get in there. It was like 2 in the morning. I popped in it and I ultimately won. I mean, it was like a 90-day competition, but I ultimately won. And that's how I got involved with them. I got bit off more than I could chew. And more happened than what they intended to happen as well. You know what I mean? But essentially, that's just the meat of the matter.
Yeah. So I mean, well, weren't you in the studio with? You were in the studio with Skylar for what? One day? Is that what you won?
Well, no, that was supposed to be the prize, but it ended up like she actually had emailed me before the competition was over and started asking me my backstory and stuff like that. And she was like, within the first 30 seconds of, she said, she's like, when we saw your video in the first 30 seconds, we knew you were the one, blah, blah, blah. They announced me as the winner on Bloomberg National Television. It was supposed to be one day in the studio. I met them actually in Chicago. I came up from Indianapolis to Chicago. Me, Skylar Gray, her manager, Todd Mandel, who was her ex-husband as well. Scott Warner from Gig, and a couple other people as a videographer. They were filming it all and whatnot. And I sat down with them, and it was supposed to be a day in the studio. They flew me out to LA and hooked me up with like this producer, Jason DeZuzio. He's with Kid in the Corner. He's the Alex the Kid's protege. And if you don't know who Alex the Kid is, he produced Love the Way You Lie for Eminem and Rihanna. He does a lot of the production for Imagine Dragons. And the dude is like well lit as far as credentials go.
Yeah.
But his apprentice, Jason Stuzio, had made all these beats. And Skylar had sent me like a package of beats. And I just murdered them like, one after the other. So when I got out there, we went to Jason's house in his home studio, and basically, if you've ever heard that Imagine Dragons song, like "Here Comes the Thunder,"
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like he produced that and engineered that. So that guy who made that, who was on the boards for that song, like he's the guy I'm talking about, and he made a bunch of really nice beats, and he engineered a lot of my stuff. Some of my best sounding, best quality songs came out of his talent. Combined with other people's, obviously, but he, you know,
that's
nobody gives an engineer proper credit. I don't feel like.
Oh, you know, that's a great opportunity. I mean, that's an amazing opportunity. I know my daughter; she's always singing that Thunder song like all the time. We're in the car. She's like Thunder, Thunder. It's really funny.
So, but I'm saying like one day in the studio was supposed to be a prize. It turned into like a 5-6 year escapade.
Yeah. Well, they obviously must have seen something amazing in you for to want to work with you for that long. I mean, that's a long time, right? One day in the studio turns into.
I mean, you're coming out of prison with nothing, straight out the gutter. I'm talking Westville Correctional Facility up in northern Indiana. It's dilapidated, and like it's like -20 below in the wintertime. There's no heat. Like it's flooded. Like it's cheaper for them to pay the federal fines to keep people in a condemned building than it is to build a new one. So like coming from a place like that, and then working hard for a little while, and then get recognized at that level, like it blew my mind.
Absolutely. And it shows how you turned your life around, from being in the situation you were. That's amazing.
Never look back.
Absolutely. And we're talking about, copyrights and NFTs today in the show too. And like, that's
a big thing.
component.
That's huge. It's huge right now. And I'm actively working with some people doing some crazy stuff there. That's awesome in that world.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So recently there is a new article out on Eminem.news, and it's concerning Spotify and a copyright infringement case. I thought this is pretty
Yeah, they're
interesting.
talking about multiple songs and whatnot out of the catalog. But everybody keeps like, that's the thing, like lose yourself. Nobody knows this. Like not the biggest song of Eminem's career. Like his studio flooded in Detroit at the time of recording. Had to go record like literally 2 or 3 bars at another off-brand studio in Detroit and didn't list them and give them credit, and they came back and took everything from that man. But there's a non-disclosure agreement signed. But that's why New Zealand and whatever was using Lose Yourself for their elections. That's why Lose Yourself is at the forefront and mentioned specifically out of all these songs in the Spotify thing. If you read the article, the Spotify CEO is confused as to that song, as to who has what. And that's because of this non-disclosure that was signed because of this small studio in Detroit that Eminem never gave credit to. And they came back, and because you got to, if you go record in a studio, you got to give engineers credit. You have to give that studio credit. You can't,
absolutely.
or they will have partial ownership of your work, if not all of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
There are steps that have to be taken, and that weren't taken in this situation.
It's definitely true. And as artists, you have to make sure all those angles are covered. You have to make sure, because it can come back and bite you. It really can.
Oh yeah, and they more than often not will come back and bite you. Not can.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, what studio did you record in at when you were working with Eminem and Skylar? I'm assuming it's not the same studio.
I mean, I recorded at the home studio, like Jason's studio, whatever. Did some work with Skylar at Capitol Records, in the studio Frank Sinatra used to record in. Mostly though at Azimuth Studios. Azimuth, Azmyth, is in Indianapolis. It's owned by Ryan Adkins. He's an alumni from the same high school I went to. But Eminem's actually recorded at Azimuth Studios. 50 Cent's recorded there. Snoop Dogg's recorded there. Mary J. They had recently moved locations, which I don't know why, because it was said that the original location had like the way the building was built, the acoustics were certain, whatever, just because of the geometry of it. But they moved, but they're still pumping out, heavy hitters out of there. So
very cool. That's neat.
A lot of the stuff though I engineered myself, because like I got signed to a publishing deal with Skylar Gray, because I was a single father at the time, and I couldn't leave my daughter to go actually do a full-on record deal, which I was on the rooftop of Capitol Records, like the round building downtown, like on the rooftop of Capitol Records, on the breaker box. You come out the door on top of Capitol Records on the breaker box. It's a tag by MC8 from the Beastie Boys. It used to be all laid out up there, but they painted the whole thing. That's the one thing they left intact up there, was a tag by MC8 from the Beastie Boys, because he had died the year they painted it. So it was like a tribute. So I was up there, and they offered me a full 360 deal, and I had to turn them down because my daughter, and I couldn't. It would have required me moving to LA, and I wasn't ready for that. So I agreed to a publishing deal. So essentially, when they would send me beats, like from Mike Caren, Jeff Vaughn, Atlantic Records, all them cats, like I would get these packs of beats, and they gave me a studio computer, a MacBook. That being said, I didn't do too much recording in any other studio. I just used GarageBand to record concepts. My engineering, I'm not an engineer, but lyrically, I knock them out the park every time. Doop, 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 content, knock it out the park every time.
Oh, absolutely. And you can do a lot with GarageBand to get your ideas down.
Yeah, but, well, me recording myself in GarageBand, it sounded like crap. But that wasn't the point. I was sending them concepts and ideas. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So I mean, I got demo songs with Skylar Gray. She's just like, like syllables, just singing melodies. And she'd send me that melody, and I'd go back and fill in every syllable of that melody with words that actually made sense. And that's how a lot of their songs for the past 5 years
Yeah.
got put together.
Oh yeah, the whole creative process is really interesting. So, okay, in your experience, I know today I've been talking a bit about NFTs and copyrights and how it affects us now. So, in your experience, how have NFTs affected the music industry and copyrights? Would you say?
I mean, I'm saying like it's a non-fungible token. First of all, that's what NFT stand for. In case anybody doesn't know, it's non-fungible.
Right.
On Wall Street, the term fungible means, I got an orange jacket. Walmart has 1,000 other of these same orange jackets. It's fungible. Non-fungible means one of a kind, unique. So essentially, like a lot of these artists, like Snoop Dogg, for instance, Snoop Dogg is like the biggest proponent of NFTs in the metaverse. Eminem's heavy in it too. It's their way of reclaiming ownership of their property, because when like mid 90s, Snoop Dogg signed his deal, the metaverse, NFTs didn't exist. And then nobody anticipated that. They signed him to a lifetime deal though, where his record sales, he's got to kick out probably 97%. He could keep 100% of his show money, he can keep 100% of his merchandise, whatever. But essentially his album sales, just raw album sales, he's kicking back the majority. So
Right.
like what happens, like I know what I got on my computer. I got beats Eminem himself made. I got beats B.O.B. himself made, the world's never heard. I got hooks that, man, I got some crazy stuff on my computer. So I can only imagine what somebody like Snoop Dogg has. So if he has like this underground basement of a house in Compton freestyle of him, Tupac, Ice Cube, Dre, whoever, on his hard drive, but if he releases it in under his real world record deal, he's got to cough up 90+%. And so a track like that would make millions. But if he would release something like that in the metaverse on his own, under his own new brand, then he gets to reclaim ownership of the property, because essentially it becomes two separate products. It's like the demo. A demo of a song is not the actual song. The demo, like I did a bunch of these demos that ended up being studio hits. So the demo is a different product than the actual release, even though
Right.
it's the basis and the fundamental idea for the basic release. It's a different product. It's essentially the same thing, and people are just building out a new world for themselves, and the record labels are having a hard time keeping up.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, and that's a good thing though for artists. I mean,
Yeah,
if
it's a
they're
good thing for artists. It's a great thing for artists. But think about all the artists that these record deals sign. Think about how many songwriters like myself and producers. Everybody knows who works for these labels, producers and songwriters. You could write 1,000 songs and maybe never one of them gets used. You could
it's
make
true.
1,000 beats, maybe never one of them gets used. But the label still owns them. Label still
Oh,
owns them,
oh
and
yes.
they're gonna put them on the shelf. So you have the difference between solicited material and unsolicited material. The average artist can't walk in a record label and say, "Here, listen to my stuff." They'll literally look at you and throw it in the trash can right in front of your face.
Exactly.
So it becomes a solicited material. Mostly, you need an agent and a lawyer to get an inside edge and submit your music. Why aren't the labels minting NFTs of all these beats they have on them shelves? Why are people still going on YouTube to get some knockoff beat some 12-year-old made, when the labels could mint NFTs of their music that they have on the shelf, sell it as NFTs, the artists buy it, the NFT, and that becomes their solicitation. They resubmit it to the label. And if the label likes it, maybe they sign you. If they don't, you never hear from them again, but you still own the NFT, whatever. Something along them lines. Then the labels could actually keep up.
True. But
And
you
it would
have
make people like me money too when they sold stuff that I put on their shelf.
right. Yeah. I mean, that's a very, very good point. Okay, so moving on. What is your personal particular style, would you say?
Man, that's what they asked. They wanted me to. I say acapella, dude. I just don't like being restrained. I don't like being confined to a beat. I got a lot to say, and I got a lot of different ways to say it. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So I kind of told Eminem, Skylar Gray, I told all them, I'm like, I really want to be an acapella artist. Yeah,
Do you still write music? Do you still record music?
a little bit. I'm working on some stuff. I mean, last time I put something out, it was a Lucky Me. I put it on SoundCloud, which I don't really like SoundCloud, but I put it on Lucky Me by Billy ShayXpeer. It was a shot of M. And his response to that song is his kickoff freestyle. Like when he comes out and says, "Let me put my balls on this tees. I'm dotting I's every time I cross one of these." It's because the 2 dotted I's in my name and the 2 X's. And basically, he even said, "Mention me in your raps if it makes you a buck." Something. I want payment in pub or something. No matter if you put me in your lines, I'm taking a cut. It's because I have a publishing deal with him, and no matter what I ever put out, even if it's about him, he's still gonna make money. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, it benefits him essentially.
Marshall, you said anyone, anytime, anywhere. I'm someone. The time is now, and I'm right here.
Because this recording has explicit content, to see what Billy ShayXpeer has to say to Eminem, you can head on over to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Shonna Brown. Well, viewers, you heard it here first. Billy ShayXpeer versus Eminem. Will it happen?
I mean, it's better to get. I mean, think about it, Shonna. Think about it. Think about
it's gonna happen. So we're gonna have to stay tuned, and everybody watching, stay tuned to my next episode of Talk with Shonna, and we'll see what ends up happening.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate having you. You're amazing, man. You're so talented. Everybody check this guy out. He is so good. I really hope that this will end up happening. And thanks everyone for watching the show. And thanks so much, Billy ShayXpeer, for joining us on the show today.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
I'm definitely going to have you on again. Thank you so much. And let's see what ends up happening. Okay,
yeah, let me know about your album.
Eminem,
I'd love to work with you. Let me know.
Okay, I will. Thanks, my brother. All right?
Please. Yep.
Okay, thanks everyone for watching Talk with Shonna right here on the Fired Up Network, Female Empowerment Movement. Let the music live through you.
I'm gonna tell